Thanks for logging on to Wayne.com for the first Inside the Zone edition of 2011. As always, we've got Komets beat writer from the News-Sentinel, Blake Sebring, joining us now, and we can actually talk about some good news from the Komets for right now.
I know. They're 4-0-2 in their last 6, and they're scoring goals, and they're doing a pretty good job. They came back in Dayton Saturday night after they were down 3-0 to win 4-3 in the shootout, and that's something they couldn't have done 3-4 weeks ago. They wouldn't have scored that much. They would have given up, and it might have been 7 or 8-0 by the time it was over.
Yeah, obviously, looking back at last week, I mean, they played 4 games last week, but the offense finally decided to show up. They averaged 4.5 goals in the 4 games. What did you see differently about the team?
Oh, this is going to be fairly controversial, but you know, one thing I notice is when Frankie and Brandon are being effective, whoever's playing with them is really effective. And they were on a hot streak last week. Both of them were playing really well offensively, and that seemed to spark some of the forward lines a little bit. Matthew Curado got off to a good streak too. Tab Lardner got off to a good streak too. You know, everybody was. Sean O'Connor got hot a little bit. You know, PC got a little bit warmer, and Leo was really hot. So you know, it's kind of interesting with all that. And then this week you add in Colin Chalk, and you might get to add in Kaylee Schrock a little later. And Kaylee was really the only offense there for a few weeks. If those guys can maintain it, of course you're going to lose Brandon now. Brandon's going to be out for a shoulder injury, probably for 10 days at least. So it's, you know, but they're starting to get much more balance, much more contributions from everybody, and they just look like they were playing harder last week too. I mean, I think that's the biggest difference between the CHL and the IHL. It's not the younger, it's not the speed, it's the fact that they play harder more consistently. And so they look faster too that way. And they look like they're playing harder. And they are playing harder because they just do it from shift to shift instead of taking one shift off and going for another one and seeing what happens.
Isn't that the key, though? I mean, it probably sounds a little trite, but I mean,
it is, yeah.
You find somebody who's hot and you kind of feed off of them.
Right. And there's plenty of guys on this team who could get hot and carry you for a week, too. And that was probably the most frustrating thing for the management and the coaching staff through the first third of the season was you got all these guys who could score 30 goals and could get hot and carry you for a week at a time, and nobody was doing anything. And now they're all starting to feed off each other and get some confidence going, and then you add Chalker in, and that'll even help more.
Yeah, I think they did a couple of things last week. You know, they actually came from behind to get a win. They actually held on late to get a win over Mississippi, and they also won at Dayton. I mean, you can almost sense the confidence just continuing to grow.
Well, they kind of needed it after Friday night's loss at home. I mean, that was terrible. They're up 2-0 and 3-2, and they just got into run and gun hockey, and they just didn't help their goalies out at all. Turnover led to a 3-on-1 on a 4-on-4 overtime. I mean, that's pretty bad for the game-winning goal. And they just, I don't know, I think they were mad at themselves, and they realized they let one slip away there, and then when they fell behind 3-0, I know Al really ripped them in the locker room between first and second, and he seems to have had pretty good luck with that so far. It'll be interesting to see how the leadership changes now with Chalker back, too.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned the goaltending because it was kind of weird because Kevin Ryder started the game, was that Wednesday or Friday?
Yes,
Friday. And then Bush comes in to relieve him, but then on Saturday, Bush starts.
And Ryder was really down after Friday's game, too. I mean, he was just kicking himself. And he came in and made 22 saves out of 22 shots and just kept him in the game, and some of those saves were great, and he really needed that for his confidence, too.
Is there any idea what direction they're going to go now?
Oh, who knows? You know, I mean,
if they just
as soon as we figure it out, somebody will get hurt, and they'll have to change it all anyway. Yeah. So, I mean, you know, you wonder why, when they were struggling, why they kept flipping goalies. Well, this is why. You know, because there's going to be times when somebody's hot and somebody's not, and you got to try to keep them both fresh. I mean, that was Kevin's first game Friday night in a week and a half, you know, and because Nick had been playing so well. You got to get him in because you know you're going to need him, and he struggled a little bit. He got hung out to dry on the first 2 goals, I thought. I didn't think he had a chance on either one of them. But, you know, but then he came back Saturday and played so well. You're going to need both of them.
And the much-anticipated debut of Colin Chalk pushed back a week, apparently suffering from the flu. I know you've been talking with Colin. What's the latest?
Oh, he's ready to go. His biggest thing is he's worried now he hasn't been on the ice in 9 days before today, so he's figuring his legs will feel like Jell-O Friday night. And I'm like, yeah, well, wait till Sunday, and it's 3-3. And, because the adrenaline will carry him, the crowd will carry him through Friday night. And Saturday, he might, be a little stiff, but Sunday is going to be the one that he's going to need some help.
I don't know if it's weird or ironic, but the team starts playing well. He's getting ready to jump right into the loop. I mean, how can he now make them better?
Well, if you recall, it was a couple years ago when he had the staph infection. He was out, and they were 10-1-1 when he came back. And then he had 10 points in the final 10 games. So he just he said, I'll just fill the role wherever you need me, and I'm not going to mess this up. He didn't want to be the cause of screwing it up, because sometimes that can happen when you add a big-name player like that. Everybody starts looking at them instead of doing what they're supposed to. He's like, I'll fit in wherever, I'll kill penalties, whatever Al needs, and we'll just go from there. I'll just try to add in what I can.
But he's feeling better?
He's feeling better.
Well, that's good.
Actually, it was his family that was fighting the illness, some family members.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, now that you fight that off, they get, like you said, busy week. They got Friday, Evansville coming to the Coliseum. Saturday, the Komets travel to Dayton, and then on Sunday, Quad City comes into town.
Pretty easy week, really. For having a road game in there, that's as easy as it gets, travel-wise. And I'm not saying anything about the competition, but the travel-wise, that's as easy as it gets. You get to sleep in your own bed every night, and you can't beat that.
And being unbeaten in 6 games, you get in a groove. Yeah. And having 3 games in 3 nights, I mean, it doesn't sound good, but it sort of is good.
Oh, yeah, exactly. They'd like to play Wednesday if they could right now. I mean, when you're hot like this, you want 4 games a week. I mean, you want 5 games in 7 days like they had last week. I mean, you want as many games as possible. And for some reason, the Komets over the last 5 years have always played great, a lot better whenever they have a busy schedule. You'd think, oh, man, they're old. They're going to need the rest. It's just not going to work. But they seem to do really well with that, and the goalies especially seem to do well with it.
Well, hopefully they can turn that around, keep it going on Friday. And I don't need to turn things around at this point. They've already turned around.
Well, it'd be nice to see them get a little bit more consistently. I mean, it seems like they've played 2 good periods a game lately. They haven't had a full game yet. It's like, well, maybe now's the time to try to go for 3 periods in a game and really show some consistency and maybe establish some dominance and see what they can do.
And they've played the least amount of games in the league. They're only 4 points out of the last playoff spot in their division now.
And they have those extra home games at home against Evansville too.
Yeah, so things are starting to come together.
But I don't think they're going to be satisfied with just catching Evansville. I mean,
right.
I mean, that's just not going to happen. I mean, if they could play 10 games over 500 the rest of the way, they could move up in the standings quite a bit. So.